Hello guys, my name is Angel. Welcome back to a new episode of Dev++. Today on system design, we're gonna be talking about front-end applications architecture. A real quick video regarding how to architecture any front-end application with any modern framework, right? Okay, so first of all, a little bit of the diagram here. From my experience, working with multiple frameworks over the past 15 years, both monolithical server render frameworks or front-end frameworks, they share, elements in common to make the application scalable, fast and pretty well organized for extension and for debugging, which is probably the two most important tasks that you will be doing as a software developer, right? So let's talk about these different components now, different parts, right? The views right here to the left, which is the presentational layer, right? Many years ago, there was like this pattern, this very popular pattern for any web application or applications overall called MVC, Model View Controller. So these views, and they have like certain, traits from what a view on an MVC model was, right? They inherit like certain features from that past model into a more evolved, unidirectional architecture. That is the one that I'm trying to explain today, right? So we have the views, which is how we present the information to the end user. These views can be complex views or can be component. I'm going to show you the difference. I'm going to tell you the difference just in a little bit when I explain deeper what a view is and what it does. A view can hold permissions or different validation functions within, right? A view communicates with actions or services, which are business logic within our application. Again, this could be a remote application, or it could be a remote API, or it could be just, an endpoint in our self-contained API or server render application. It communicates through those actions via events, right? Then we have the actions and the business logic and the services, right? These actions and business logics, there are small components of, business rules of things that the application should be doing and business logic. And then the way that they communicate to the view changes on the interface is through a shared state, or a place on the application where you broadcast things that are happening, with the data and with the current application state, right? So basically, these three elements, right? These three big elements, which they have underlying components, and they can be composed into smaller parts. But in general, we have views for presenting information to the user. We have actions who change the state or execute code on the application. We have a shared state that can be modified, as a consequence of the execution of an action. And then we have views that they display what the shared state, it has at any given time, right? This pattern and this structure not only works for applications such as React or Angular or Next.js, they also work for more advanced applications and desktop applications, or, basically anything with a UI. So I'm going to explain you a little bit better, my concepts on view, components, story, and actions, right? We have views and components, which is the first layer or the first component here to the left, right? In my definition, I separate views and components into views, or what it used to be called controllers or containers, right? Depending on the pattern that you're following, which contains, some local states and the logic and the connection to the store or the state or the subscription to the events that are going to be broadcasted by the actions or any external services, right? As a difference of components or presentational components with which they only understand how to render the UI, right? You can find like a really good example in any UI library like Material UI, InDesign, or Bootstrap. These are components that may or may not hold an internal state, but the only purpose and the only task that they have is just to present information to the end user or to the user interface, right? We have a store where we hold the shared state. Basically, is one or multiple places where you hold or you store the current state of the application. You know, this can come in different ways, like split logically. Ideally, at least from my perspective, you have to split the store logically into different you know, logically organized substates of the system. This store could be persisted, you know, could be you know, stored in a database remotely, could be stored on a local storage, could be encrypted. You know, there's a lot of possible combinations that you can do here, but the basic information is that that's where you hold the current state of the application. Actions or services, you know, this could in the MVC model could also look like similar to the controllers, or part of the responsibility of the controllers. Basically, the actions or the services, they are in charge of receiving, you know, a command or an event from the view, or from the interface, or from an external system, do some sort of a logic, modify the application state, and then you know, just tell the application state that what's the new value, right? Again, people who work a lot with React, they always think about the state of the application as whatever you have in memory and you have in your JavaScript variables, right? But that's not only the case. The state is a combination between your current values and also the information that you have in your databases or external system, right? All that combined represents the current state of the application. So modifying an external resource like a table, right, or a table row that you are subscribed to here updates, changing that, you know, it is classified as changing the state of the application, right? So an action could also be a local modification of data, or it could be like invoking a web service remotely. Okay, so now that we have the different parts of the system, let's talk about some general conventions around these parts, right? Unidirectional flow always, right? Keep this you know, consistent, and your application will be well built. The views communicate with the action communicates to the store, and the store communicates to the view, usually using events, subscription, or broadcasting. Presentational component subscribes to changes in the application, actions dispatch events. Presentational components, they have the logic necessary to trigger events and affect the state. Actions, usually you want to keep them simple and also composable. That means that you can combine multiple actions in order to reuse code and don't repeat yourself. The stores, always they propagate changes, or they notify changes to everybody who needs to know, or every subscriber. In my opinion, this is very, you know, my opinion, we have to have some consistency checks, right? If you can only subscribe to an event that exists, right? An action can never dispatch an event that doesn't exist. In a store cannot handle data for an event or change that does not exist, right? Some conventions for the views. A view optionally can check for permissions, can check for validations, and the only time when a view gets updated is as a result of a change of a state, right? Not because you know, different external factors that are not related to the state of the application, right? A view shouldn't be handled promises life cycles, or await, or asyncs, or, you know, then and catch. It must rely always in the event framework. So if you need to trigger some action that is going to be asynchronous, it's going to take a long time, you should just send a message to an action. The action should take care, and as a result, it will modify the state, and the state will propagate changes to the view. Some conventions on the store. The store is defined by one or more events that are grouped together. That's normally how I see you know, the store is basically like a grouping of different events. Every possible event application must be defined either, you know, declaratively or programmatically. Ideally, is my preference at least. That's what I recommend, that have pretty well separated stores. And, you know, the stores have to be available and can receive events, you know, via this concept of dispatching or broadcasting events at any given time. It shouldn't be blocked, or it shouldn't be not available, right? The store also should be available for reads, being able to know what the state of the application is at any given time, right? Finally, these three different concepts. First of all, the actions. An action has to represent a business activity, right? whether it's an API or it's a local action in your front-end application, or it's a route or an API or web service or a GraphQL resolver, it has to represent ideally a business activity, right? Why? Because you have to define validations, permissions, and those type of informations in order to get it complete. It should be a black box for consumers. It shouldn't, the user of this action shouldn't be able to modify his internals or put like parameters and modify these internals. Ideally, not always is possible, but ideally should be composable, meaning that you can combine different actions into a more complex structure or a more complex action, and it has to be pure, right? It has to be able to dispatch and make changes to the store. The last two components, permissions and validation, this is pretty much specific of any given project, but I like to include it here because like 90% of the time I have to build it when I'm building an application, a web application, whether it's front end or back end, is necessary. So permissions and validations ideally should be JavaScript pure functions, and also to be very easy to compose and have like a single interface or a pretty clearly defined interface in order to be able to compose this type of functions. So perfect, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I will be doing more videos on system designs. If you enjoyed this content, make sure to hit the like button or leave any comments regarding what you want to see next, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching.